I have used, the same title I think you had for the session. So one water for food security in the MENA region. And so we know, and a number of, I don't know if everybody is from the MENA region or some people from outside the MENA region, but we know that, this region is particularly affected by water scarcity problem, the climate change, the number of challenges. But what I want really to stress today is more this, the linkages that exist between water, the food systems, health, climate change, energy, finance, and that are quite important for global stability, I think, and that if we don't pay attention, water insecurity leads to food insecurity, migration, and conflict. And we know how much the MENA region is affected by also this problem of migration and conflict.
May I ask you to put the full screen of your presentation, please?
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
And so when in the region, we have all the environment, the climate, the demographic changes, and COVID-19 that are forcing us to think differently about water, about food, and all these linkages. And so I'm going to just start by, this is the outline of briefly the outline of the presentation, the water and food challenges very quickly. What are the opportunities and how we can improve the food security through water and land management? And I will conclude. So the water and food challenges in the Arab region. So first of all, so this is, when we talk about Arab region or MENA is almost the same, but we have problems related to population growth. And we know that, the region is, the population is growing very fast, and we have still a lot of, it is increasing in the number of countries quite significantly. Migration, as I just mentioned, drought and floods that are also related to extreme events and to climate change, groundwater depletion, because a number of countries rely quite a lot on groundwater, inadequate planning, pollution, because of the different activities, competing demand for resources, and all this is being exacerbated by climate change. The annual population, this is just to show how, the growth in different countries, and we compare, for example, the Gulf countries or the LDCs or the Maghreb, we have, of course, differences. The region is quite different and the countries are quite different. But this annual population growth is very important to take into account that the rates are quite significant, as I said, in some of the countries. The region is also, so we have, urban and rural, the population is divided, but we see that it is, a number of people are moving to the urban areas, and so it is, I think, about 58 or 68. We have 60% of the population that is now living in cities, and this is going to affect significantly how we manage water and also our food system. So, as I said, the region is the most water scarce region in the world and the least prepared for water crisis. There are a number of it is the greatest expected economic losses from climate-related water scarcity. The cost of poor water quality ranges from 0.5 to 2.5% of GDP. To remove we have very low water services fees and highest effective water subsidies in the world. The total water productivity in the Arab world is only about 50% of the world's average. We have a high proportion of the desalination world capacity, and the cost of inadequate water supply and sanitation is about 1% of, let me see, of the, my screen is not fully, It's about 1% of regional GDP annually, with conflict-affected countries losing as much as 2 to 4% per year. Here, just to show the water availability, so you have the water stress, water scarcity, and you see that most of the countries are below the absolute water scarcity. So a number of countries are below the 500 cubic meter per capita. And here you have the data for 2018, 2025, and 2050. And we see that it is not going to improve in most cases. It's going to get worse in most of the countries. So the share of desalination capacity is the largest in the world. It's about not far from 50%. And so it means also that a lot of energy is being used for desalinating the water. And this water is being used mostly for water supply, but also in some cases for irrigation as well. We have a number of shared surface water sources in the Arab region, but also the groundwater, a number of shared aquifers. And there are also a number of challenges, and we'll talk briefly about this later on. The sustainability of, when we talk about sustainability of water withdrawals, it is more talking about unsustainable volumes of water that are being withdrawn, and this is degrading ecosystems and aquifers. The region is living beyond its means, beyond its natural water capital, and it is undermining its longer-term wealth and resilience. It's showing the total annual renewable resources per capita and the average water consumption for urban population connected. So you can see again that we are overdrafting with water resources in most of the cases, except Mauritania or Iraq, but in also even Sudan. But in most of the cases, we are using more than what we have. Change is going to affect the region, and we see here. Different models are showing that we will have an increase of the temperature and decrease of, I didn't put the slide, but it is decrease of the rainfall in most of the cases. And this water, the region is going to have the greatest economic losses from climate-related water scarcities, from 6 to 14% by 2050. And you see, when you compare with other regions of the world, is the region that is going to be the most affected. The share of treated wastewater or of reclaimed water that is being used in irrigation, when we compare it to what is not recycled, is quite high. So 82% of the wastewater treated or untreated is not being recycled. So it's quite a very important water source that is not being, reused. It is being reused informally, but not formally. And it's important that we pay more attention to this water source. This is just showing some pictures from Tunisia of surface water, the transfers of the water, open channels or piped, the drilling in the deep aquifers up to 3,000 meters, wastewater treatment plants, desalination plants. So all the different sources of water are being tapped. Some of the sources are still not being tapped, like the stormwater. I think it's also quite important to pay also attention to this source of water. When we look at the water withdrawals, and so as I said, we are using different sources of water, but just is showing that some countries are relying much more on groundwater, and in some cases on fossil water compared to other, and desalination. So this is showing also the difference between different countries, and some also rely on large transboundary rivers or aquifers. The agriculture sector is the biggest consumer of water. It's about 84% of all water withdrawals, which is quite significant. Of course, there are differences between countries, but it's quite, and we see here in red the withdrawal for municipal water, in blue is agriculture, and in green is industry. When we look at the consumption of different different and the production of the different key commodities in the Arab region in thousands of tons. So we see that when we look at cereals, meat, sugar, and oil, but there are also other commodities. But when we compare what we produce to what we consume, it's we are consuming much more than what we are producing. So we are very much dependent on what we are importing. And this is also an important point that we have to discuss. But also the question of poverty, this is urban poverty, but also rural poverty is quite significant. And it is also, of course, related to the, there are important urban and rural poverty rates in the region. It is variable depending on the countries, but also is quite important to have this in mind. The different farming systems, so we have the irrigated, highland mixed, fed mixed, dryland mixed, pastoral or arid, so it is very much similar. But just to show that a number of of the land is more used for pastures or have arid areas, and that the agricultural population is also, more related to the irrigated or to the highland mixed. And the prevalence of poverty is also related, we see prevalence of poverty with the highland mixed or the extensive or the dryland mixed or pastoral areas. This is the project change. I have problems with some of these, sorry. The projected change is next net agriculture export in the Middle East and North Africa for 2050 and 2100. And just to show that, that the agriculture export is rather going to decrease with time, and we are going to rely more, of course, on the import. So this question will be what kind of thing we should produce, what kind of produce we should import, and how much water is being used for producing the agriculture products. Important point also is all the food loss. And we see here, and this is also very important to keep in mind, because we have to reduce these food losses that are going to, affect the food security and affect the water security as well. So it is also something we see a number of countries now that are really recycling all this, trying first of all to reduce the food losses. Would it be at the farm level or during the processing of the food, or that when we consume some of the food? So we really had to look at the whole food chain and try to reduce the losses, because as I said, it's water and food that we are losing. And this is showing also the total annual renewable water resources per capita and net virtual water import. And you can see also again how much we are importing compared to the net virtual water import is in orange, and the blue is the total renewable water resources. So again, the dependency on the food import, as I said, it is related to, and this is showing that we are importing from different parts of the world. And of course, cereals comes first, but other products as well. And so we have to really rethink how much about our trade, food trade, and as I said, what we should produce and what we should import. Opportunities. First of all, of course, the Agenda 2030 is providing real opportunities in order to look at the different linkages between the different SDGs. When we think of poverty, of zero hunger and the food production, the health, education, gender, water, of course, but energy, industry, and so on, climate change, cities, life below water on land, and all the partnerships and so on. So all is very important to keep in mind. And this pushes us to think more in a more integrated way and more holistically about the solutions we have to find. And so the elements, and also, there are, we are going, COVID-19 was an element of, for me, an element of transformation and the rupture. And we have to take into account such an important event that made us think differently about our how we behave towards natural resources, towards toward foods. A number of people have been changing their behavior and so on. And so this is an opportunity to rethink the way our diets, to think our food and so on. And so there are elements of transformation that we have to take into account, like the governance and institution, how we have to rethink the whole system, because it made us think about the health, the connection between health, food, water, education, and so on. So, and this will have an impact on, can have, and we should take this opportunity to rethink our governance, who are the actors, and how we can have different connections between different kinds of actors, the behaviors and the values related to water, to food, and other values, the technology, economic and financial tools, and also think from the point of view of the nexus, water, energy, food, health, and so on, and what are the best practices, but also to learn from successes, but also from failures. So the major challenges for transformation are the climate and energy transition, and we have seen, and we will talk about some of these aspects: sustainable management of water system and reduction of water and climate risks, development of sustainable agriculture and food system, sustainable urbanization and interaction with rural areas, sustainable use of resources and creation of a circular economy, social risk management and social and job creation, building resilience, and what are new opportunities that we could benefit of, valuing water and resources, would it be land or other, and governance, taking into account this systematic management of the entire global water and food systems. So when we talk about the different options, first of all, they are, from the point of view of food securities, first of all, is how we can reduce reliance on food imports, how we could produce more of our food, internally, and what kind, as I said, as I was saying, what kind of food we should produce that we can be more water efficient, and what kind of seeds we can use, and so on, and that are more adapted to our conditions, and what we should. And we have to invest in SCIs and development of technology to ensure sustainability of food production and reduce pressure on natural resources. To develop also the agriculture that can help. Very often agriculture is not being considered as important as it should be. Of course, the contribution of agriculture to GDP has reduced, but it is still affecting, very important in the economy, and it can boost the economy, it can create jobs, it can promote food security and reduce poverty. And I think that more attention should be given to agriculture. And as I was saying, reduce food waste. So some examples of how we can improve food security through land and water management. First of all, is more efficient accounting, monitoring, use and allocation of water among competing users. I think it's very important. And we are in Tunisia, have been through, and we are still, period of drought, and how to allocate water, where it should go, for what kind of crops and what kind of uses is one of the very important things. But also at the same time, we have to be more attentive to water accounting and monitoring, which is, I think we are not doing enough on this. maintaining ecosystem services. Very often we don't, and we have to pay even farmers for the ecosystem services that are I mean, when we see all the water and soil conservation activities that are doing in different parts of the world and in our region. So it's very important to maintain agrobiodiversity and ecosystems. So some examples of water harvesting, using water conservation works I mean, different systems. These are examples from Tunisia, but also water use efficiency by agricultural practices through conservation agriculture, agroforestry, intercropping practices. Improving the irrigation efficiency and water productivity is we can do a lot on these aspects as well. Improving water use efficiency by different irrigation systems, precise agriculture, drip irrigation, wise crop practices, and so on. Use of desalinated water. There are some experiments on use of desalinated water for irrigation purposes here in Tunisia, but also the use of solar-powered field irrigation and desalination. Hydroponic farming is also an example of how we can improve and have a higher water productivity. These are examples of gray water reuse that have been done in Tunisia. I mean, and using drip irrigation and for producing, I mean, strawberries and different kinds of vegetables. But also, as I was saying, I mean, 82% of the water, reclaimed water that is not being reused is very important. Some different examples from Tunisia, from Kuwait, and very highly treated, in this case, effluents, and in Abu Dhabi, and used for different purposes, because we can go up to, I mean, but for me, we are focusing on food production and the need for, I mean, to reuse, I mean, the existing potential of reclaimed water for agricultural purposes. On transboundary basin, there are also a number of activities. This is example of the shared aquifer between Algeria, Tunisia, and Libya. What was interesting is that there was, I mean, going further, first of all, started by sharing data, but also going through water, food, energy, ecosystems nexus. And so I think it's interesting also to look at the environmental dimension, but also to the energy one that is being, as is the case in this project. Important aspects is all the partnership between academia, private sector, public sector, and the civil society. And there are a number of policy options that we have we have to implement to enhance food security. So the question of availability of domestic food versus imports, rain-fed agriculture. I think, I mean, making a better use of the green water, because it's a very important potential. And I think we have to focus, we are very much focusing on irrigated agriculture, but rain-fed is a very important sector that, because looking for crop resistant to drought, we have to go back to our the seeds that we have and to make a better use of the ones that are more adapted to drought, to the environmental context, to salinity or sodicity, and low-cost approaches to water harvesting and conservation. On irrigated agriculture, focus on to reduce the demand for water, cost recovery policies, innovative tool approaches. There are a number of ones. I presented a few, but I mean, we have to have the policy that support these different innovations. And when we, I mean, in a number of countries, for example, drip irrigation or water saving technologies have been accompanied by the number of subsidies and policies in order to push farmers to go in this direction and providing subsidies. expanding intra-regional trade, I think is, we have a lot of commonalities in the region, but we are not enough going through this intra-regional trade, reducing food loss and waste, because it's really, as I said, water and food that we are losing. In some cases, I mean, for the poor, would it be in rural or urban areas, we have to provide some targeted social protection programs, but also all the education and incentive for healthier lifestyles and diets, I think is quite important. Well, in conclusion, I think that we need to consider, debate, and implement a broader range of tools, technologies, and policies. We need innovative thinking, I think, and as I said, we have the spirit of COVID and different ruptures. We have a number of political ruptures in the country that we have to make good use of in order to make, to go for this, I mean, for transforming the way we manage water, the way we do, I mean, our agriculture can be really, we can manage completely differently our agriculture with all these different transformation. And so it is an opportunity, and we have to make use of these opportunities. But of course, better agriculture water use efficiencies, including fees, pricing, and as well as water reuse. Reform agriculture in a way that livelihoods can be protected and water resources used in the most efficient manner. Move to higher value crop production with high resource efficiency methods and higher water productivity. Use also of renewable energies. Shift to integrated water management concept. Governments that will promote reforms and as well as new technologies, and to engage in policy work with practitioners, facilitate capacity development. I think it's important to keep in mind that, yeah, we have to increase to build or increase the capacity of people in order to be able to undertake all these changes. And I think this is the end of my presentation. Yeah, systems thinking, planning and implementation to achieve sustainable and resilient solution. And I would like to thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Professor Akiça, for the very informative presentation, and who took us to different facets of the agricultural sector and the water sector, trying to link them, and to show you showed us different challenges and opportunities in the MENA region. Probably we can keep in mind few keywords related to probably increasing efficiency, reducing waste, increasing, trying to be more innovative, and to engage with the policymakers and civil society. So it's a call to collaboration for in the framework of One Water for food security in the MENA region. I would like to give the floor to our participant to ask questions. So please just raise your hand here below, so that you can talk. Yes, please go ahead. I think that Andreas would have a lot of questions, and you are muted, Andreas.
Thanks a lot, Ms. Bahri. Thanks a lot for this nice presentation. As a matter of fact, I was typing away in the chat, not having sent it off yet, a question to you. So thanks a lot. I think there's a lot of very interesting materials here for our Aurora project, where we focus on the role of institutions and governance and a systems approach to analyzing water-related issues and water and agriculture-related issues in the MENA region. I'd be interested from your rich experience in, well, trying to steer this field or co-steer with many of your colleagues and other people in responsibility. Where would you really see the main obstacles to, for example, improving innovativeness and efficiency in water management? And therefore, where would you set the priority in improving the situation? Because there's many suggestions on the table, which I found very useful to see. But as there are many problems, I guess one needs to prioritize and one needs to weigh a bit where core issues are. So be interested to hear your opinion on that. Thanks.
Should I respond immediately? Okay.
Yes,
For
yes,
me,
please.
Yeah. So I think that we have to work at different levels because there are different issues. First of all, we have to strengthen. For me, I mean, we have to have a strong research and development R&D. You know, it's very important that, but what is important as at the same time is this connection between the scientists with the policymakers and with the civil society and so on. This is the link that has been missing. And I come from the research, you know, I've been working in research most of my career. And then as I moved with the minister, I also could, I mean, realize how much, first of all, we know a number of research results are not being translated into, but because of this lack of communication, and we have, first of all, to have, I mean, so the research, the funding of the research is also an issue, because very often I see in my country, I mean, people are getting funds from outside. And so when we had this link between the research, to set the research priorities, put the agenda that goes with the development issues, this is very important, and with the policymakers. So this is, for me, what is important. And then the other important problem is governance. I mean, to put the right institution. So very often on when some of the institutions are facing problems, it takes a lot of time before we address the problem. So I've seen with our Water Users Association, who are the one who are, for example, providing water for farmers. I mean, they are facing issues since, I mean, maybe 10 years now, but we have not been addressing properly. So the governance, the fact that also, for example, water is within the Ministry of Agriculture, but the coherence of the policies between water and agriculture, each one is working in silos. And for example, we see, this is why I was talking about water, food, energy, and also even now we have the linkage with health. And we have, so it makes our job much more difficult maybe, but also it's much more interesting. This is why I think the Agenda 2030 framework is very, I mean, the framework is very interesting, but we have to really make this effort to make these linkages and to work across borders, to push the frontier, not to say each one sitting in its own one. So when we talk about the governance, it's at different level, from local up to, you know, ministerial level, where we have to find ways and even find, as I said, the coherence of the policies. So how to work, we have to work on different topics and at different levels. And people have to really be willing to get out of its box or its zone of comfort and to go to see the others. And this is one of the tasks that have been given, you know, looking at the transversality. I mean, water for me is central, but we have to look at all these connections between different even ministries. This is one of the things that I will be trying to do. But for me, looking, as I said, of the policies and the coherence of the policy and research, as I said, that have to have been trying involving more researchers and extension services in development projects. And very often, you know, each one is looking at, but we need to start and to have this really people working together, listening to each other. They may be failures, but it's a partnership that has to be built. It will take time, but we have to work on it. I don't know if I responded to your question, but I mean, this is what I can say for.
Yes, I think so. Yeah, well, I mean, oh, it's interesting. Very good. Thank you very much, Professor Bahri.
We have a question or comment here from Angel, who is taking us to Mexico. He says that in developing countries like Mexico, where there are already a region with water scarcity, an area with good water recharge, but highly contaminated by microbiologically and chemically, such as in the Great Mayan Aquifer, from the list of good practices, which measures are most important for the conservation of aquifers and food security, and what are the main government programs to achieve it, mainly in karstic system and area of higher poverty. So here it's about a very particular area.
Yes.
So I think that, yeah, you know what is happening in Mexico.
Yeah. I mean, I know part of that because I have been working with some of my colleagues on water reuse in Mexico. They have the Mezquital Valley and a lot, but I mean, and problems related to karst. I mean, we have also karstic areas. We think that we, again, you know, this is the challenges. I mean, first of all, there is this problem of the contamination of the groundwater. That is, groundwater is it's a very, very important resource in the MENA region and in different parts of the world, and is being overdrafted now and being contaminated. By overdrafting the groundwater, first of all, we have all this problem of salinity increase, but also by even by irrigating. First of all, they can be mentioning the problem of microorganisms. It can be through irrigation. It can be irrigation with untreated wastewater, but also all the sanitation in rural areas. We are not enough paying all the septic tanks they are not septic tanks very often, they are just pits, and they are contaminating the groundwater. So this is why it's very important to have a good sanitation system that is preventing the groundwater pollution. This is something we are not enough paying attention. We have a number of groundwater, that has been polluted because there is this problem, and also the industries that are not providing, treating their wastewater that is being discharged, and it is, and the groundwater and being recharged with different sources of water, and this is contaminating. So it's a question of the water quality of the groundwater that we have to be protected, and that is being contaminated by, as I said, different practices. Would it be industrial discharges or sanitation that is not being, in rural areas that is not being properly managed, or through, untreated water, wastewater that is being discharged or being reused without any treatment. So it is a very important issue, because once the groundwater is being contaminated, the remediation is very difficult and it takes a lot of time. It depends, of course, on the kind of contamination, but would it be nitrates or trace elements? Would it be organic or mineral? It is going to take, to be very costly. So we have to be very, very careful about the use of groundwater, and we have to protect, because it's very often a source of water supply, and also in order to prevent any contamination that can also, if we are going to use this source of water for irrigation, may also be, have impacts on the workers, impacts on the soils, impact on the crops. So again, it's really looking at the source. What is the source of contamination that is happening, preventing the overdrafting and protecting. So, and it is all related to a better management of the water.
Many thanks, Doctor. Thank you.
The next question is from Dr. Helmi and then Dr. Majdi. Dr. Helmi, would you please go ahead with your question? Dr. Helmi, are you there? Okay, otherwise I will just read the question. So Dr. Helmi is asking, circular economy in developing countries is facing the problem of finance. How it is possible to overcome this problem? Dr. Helmi, you can elaborate a little bit more if you like.
Nothing. I just wrote my question and I just need a solution for this problem.
Okay.
No, I think, yeah, moving to circular economy is very important. Of course, it will be, it requires to be supported by, again, it's a question of policy and maybe to look at how we can support some of these initiatives of activities in order to make sure that we are going to move in the right direction, but it's going to pay on the long run. So we can start by supporting it financially in the beginning and then decreasing the subsidies that are being provided. We have to be very careful with subsidies, of course, but I mean, I agree that, I mean, for circular economy, but I mean, we cannot do without. We have to move from this linear approach to a more circular one, because in any case, when we talk about water, water is going through a cycle. So we were talking about now about Mexico, but it is exactly what is happening if we don't pay attention. So, I mean, for example, we have to support the industries in order to treat their wastewater and not to discharge it untreated, and to make sure that they will, for example, improve their process within the industry and to make sure that they have to go to zero discharge. So we have to support, but it is very important because if not, we are losing our soils, we are losing our, I mean, we are polluting our soils, our water, and even it is going to affect the health of the people. So, I mean, it is a question of where, I mean, what kind of subsidies or what kind of policy to put in place to push people to pay attention to this in order to, I mean, to move into this circular economy. But for me, it is, we have now actually a big problem with waste in different parts of the country and particularly in one, but I mean, circular economy will solve, I mean, a number of issues, because I mean, if we look at also of, for example, wastewater is a resource, solid waste is a resource. So looking at it from this point of view and trying to make sure that we close the loop, to think more about closing the loop, because there are a number of, because we are going to create jobs, we are going to, I mean, to protect our environment, we are going to produce food, we are going to produce, to provide water and so on. So there are a number of services that are going to be provided, and there are a number of things, for example, economies, we have a number of people that are working informally, for example, collecting waste or doing some of these ones. If we put them in the formal economy, is going to be to improve the whole system. So circular economy, I mean, it may be costly in the beginning. So this is why there are some policies that have to be put in place in order to support the whole system. But for me, there is no other way to go. I mean, it's important. And for example, all the food waste, when you look, I mean, internationally, how people are recycling they are transforming it. Would it be for animals, but even for people? Sometimes some of the food that are in supermarkets that is going close to be, that maybe, completely lost or wasted. We can do something out of it before it is going to be wasted or put in a landfill or something. So there, and it is creating a number of new ways of thinking and of, as I said, creating new jobs and new activities, new enterprises. So it's just creating new, new entrepreneurs. We have seen a number of examples in the world where, for me, for example, the water in cities is a very good example of how circular economy can be much more efficient. So we have to go for that. We have to see what kind of policy to put in place, what kind of research has to be undertaken, what kind of institution have to be, but we have to think in this direction.
Okay, thank you. So we need to be creative and see the good in waste and
absolutely.
Yeah.
This is not, we have to change our vocabulary. We have to not to call it waste. For me, for example, wastewater is not,
it's not waste.
Water. This is why it's something that is going to become water. The solid waste is a resource. It can become, people have been making, even from the wastewater, from the toilet paper, they have made, jewels out of toilet paper that have been, that they have collected in wastewater treatment plants. So it's just a question of thinking differently, changing the mindset, changing the behavior. We cannot go on like that. We know that we are, from the point of view of, we are overusing our resources at not only at national level, but at the planetary level. So, and we have to be careful. It's a question of sustainability.
Yeah, thank you very much. We, Mr. Majdi, Dr. Majdi, do you would like to ask your question?
Yes, thanks a lot, Dr. Bahri. I'm just wondering about two issues about reuse of treated wastewater. So I just take the case of Tunisia. No, I was working on cases. I know that a lot of farmers in those regions near the treated wastewater plants are willing to reuse the water, but they are facing with a lot of hindrances, of handicaps. So they are willing to reuse treated wastewater, but the infrastructures are not so far available. So, and they are willing to pay for that. Or on the other part, what the treated wastewater plants, the ONAS, they said, well, we have all our infrastructures, and you can talk with the Ministry of Agriculture. So the play is this a game between the farmer, ONAS, and the Ministry of Agriculture. So until now, there is no clear rules how to bring the the treated wastewater, which anyway will go into the sea. So how to bring this treated wastewater with good quality to the farmers to use it? Now, this is my question. This is basics, what I still now do not understand. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I mean, the reuse water reuse is a very important topic, and we have been working since a long period of time. But you see, the question of there were, and we have been moving, I mean, looking for agriculture, reuse of reclaimed water for agriculture, it for me is not a problem. Maybe it can be sometimes some infrastructure not available, but the problem is the water quality. And I think that ONAS has been, is working now in order to improve the water quality, because I mean, we know that we can produce the quality that we want, even up to drinking water. And then it is just a question of, and it's not a question of capacity, but the ONAS people know how to treat the water. But it's more a question of, in some cases, some of the treatment plant that has not been rehabilitated on time, because I mean, there was an expansion of the network, and they were not, the treatment plant were not rehabilitated or expanded in order to be able to treat the amount of water they were collecting. So this is a problem. But for me, and we are working, there is a water reuse master plan that is under, I mean, we are working on, and there will be next week a meeting on this. And so we hope, and for me, we cannot go, I mean, it is almost not far from 300 million of cubic meter that, so it's like quite a large dam that we have to reuse, and we have seen how much reclaimed water is important when no other water resources are available. So it's a question, I mean, again, and it's true that we have to have this dialogue, and it used to exist, I mean, to have this between the farmers, Ministry of Agriculture, the Ministry of Environment, it is ONAS is part of the Ministry of Environment. And this is why sometimes we are thinking that maybe because of the, we have to think as water and not of a waste. So we have to see how people can work more together in order to have a better understanding of that it is a water resource, and they have to deal with it as that. So even the regulation have to be reconsidered. But as I said, for me, the major problem actually is for the sanitation agency to provide a water of equal quality with time. This is the problem. And what was missing is some storage for the reclaimed water in order to be able to make it available when the farmers want it. So, but these issues, I hope, and we have no other option than to solve them, because I mean, we cannot afford to have all this water being lost, discharged in the environment, would be the sea or the land. So it's a question of time, and we are going through, I mean, like, but I know that it is going to change, and to make sure that the whole system is going to be improved.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, especially that we are working now on the master plan of reuse for reuse 2050. So I think that hopefully things will improve. Dr. Ayub, would you please ask your question? And then we have Themer, Dr. Themer.
Thank you, Alpha. Are you hearing me?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Akiça Bahri, for this presentation, this nice presentation and this flow of information. I would like to ask you, as a former Minister of Agriculture in Tunisia, about the main constraints facing the implementation of a coherent agriculture policy or strategy in Tunisia. Let's say broad strategies that could guide the design of regional and local priorities toward food security. Thank you.
Yeah, you know that we have, I mean, on water, we have had strategies and so on. In agriculture, we have had a number of studies, but we don't have yet a coherent agriculture strategy, setting the challenges and what we want to implement and so on. This is the thing that I have realized, and I wanted to work on this. And this is the thing that I was thinking of doing. And for me, I have realized how much, so there are some priorities. So actually, there are a number of initiatives, things are being done in different directions, but we have to set what are the things we have to focus on. What is important for our agriculture, and who are our farmers? And we have seen now there is, a study on trying to make large inventories of the farmers, and we have realized, even our database is not up to date, because we are using data that are, for example, I think that we have, I don't know, 400, for 500,000 something farmers. It seems that we have much more than that, and even the number of farms are much more than that. There are a number of challenges related to the agricultural sector that are, the number of plots, the number of, from the point of view of land tenure, is a very, very important issue. So we have to work first on, which is, one of the major problems, the land tenure, and how to make even, like a farm, sometimes it's small pieces. The farmers very often are not very young, and the education of farmers is very important. So we have to work to train the farmers. There are a number of, the ministry has a policy and have a number of, from the point of view of extension services and so on, but we have to do much more. The farmer, we have to make sure that, he knows he is being, its capacity, we build its capacity, and he has to have the agricultural advice is being provided at regional level, when to irrigate or what kind of crops, and all the services have to be there. So there are a number of things that to be done. For me, for example, most of our farmers are small farmers, farmers, and we have to really put this small farmer in the center and to see what are his needs. I was talking about, how to make sure that they have all the services. So there are a number of things to be done in order to be able to help our agriculture move on. We have been investing a lot on organic farming, for example, and we know that is one of these options that quite interesting and quite important. To think more, from from a territory. I have seen a number of young people in different regions that have some have came back from were living, in Canada or Germany and so on, came back and wanted to invest, and they are investing in agriculture. We have to help them, to support them, and to make sure. So a number of young women who are investing in agriculture, and in each region there are a lot of specific potentialities, and this is a thing that would be important to look at. What are the potentialities that are existing? Some of things that can emerge, and there are a number of young people who are working on some of these ideas, some startups that are also, so there is a whole ecosystem, but we have to make it, to find the coherence and to put it together and to put some priorities and to set this. For example, for me, a small farming system, it's clear that we have to put this in the center and to work around. We have to modernize our agriculture. We have to provide the means to make it more digital, more up to date, in order to organic. So there are some of these things, that we have to work on in order to make it to be able to take on the challenges the farmers are and our agriculture is facing. We are importing a lot of importing and exporting, so how to make sure that export, so to work on the whole supply chain from the farm up to the I mean, to the export, I mean, where we are exporting, as I said, for example, we are exporting still a lot of our oil, you know, not bottled. We have to, when we have a lot of organic oil and so on. So we have to look at what are the things, we have some specificities and to work on these specificities. For example, I see our vegetables, we are importing a lot, most of our seeds actually. When they are not, you know, when you eat now tomatoes or things, they don't have any taste. When we used to have things that are more adapted to our ecosystem and to our climate, we have, I mean, we have sun, we have even in the water, we have salts, we have a certain kind of and our soils have certain characteristics. So we have to, and this can produce something, work on the quality of the produce. We have, of course, to work on produce on quantity, but also the quality of the produce. What will make our product different from another one? How our tomato is going to be different from, I mean, a tomato produced in Holland, in the Netherlands, or in Italy, or our oil, for example. You know, very often we export and it is blended with the Italian or Spanish oil. And when it has some very important, from the point of view of the taste. So these are the things that we have to work on to make our product. And yeah, I mean, they are competing in international fairs. I mean, our olive oil is very often have a number of gold medals. So there is something specific. And for me is working on what makes our agriculture specific. What makes it Tunisian and makes it Tunisian, for example, from the north, from the center, from the east. It has its specificities and we have to work on this. Label our products, and we can, as they have started working on this. For example, we have the figs from Jeddah. We have, I was in the southern part of the country. They have very, very specific kind of variety olives. I mean, they dry in a certain manner. There is a knowledge, and this is knowledge and know-how that are from our farmers that we have to capture, and we have to make sure that this is going to, and to make sure that then it is going to go through, I mean, to have the whole supply chain. So there are a number of things that we can do in order to boost our agriculture, to support our farmers, to export our products with a Tunisian level, Tunisian product.
Thank you very much. You took us really a trip to a different part of the country and through the different challenges that we may be facing. I would give the floor to Dr. Themer for the question and then conclude with Andreas so that you start and you conclude our webinar.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So let me thank Professor Bahri for this nice presentation. Really, I enjoyed, and I enjoy always her speech because it gives us a lot of information following her experience as a researcher and now as a decision maker. So that's very good. And I want really to put the point of the nexus between water and energy, which has not been sufficiently development in her presentations, and still so there is we encourage always to use renewable energy for agriculture. That will be great, and we want really to make it, but there is a lot of challenge. So using renewable energy for agriculture is not really, it's very complex, and it's not really an easy way. We need a lot of investment, and probably it's not affordable for our farmers to make it. And sometimes also there is an issue once we can afford it. So probably, for example, for pumping water using renewable energy, it's sometimes there is a risk also to overexploit our water. So there is another problems. So using the renewable energy is good. So my question to Professor Bahri, is there any vision at the national, because this is a problem, it's not for the Tunisian part, but it's the whole, for the whole period in the MENA, where we want to encourage the using renewable energy for all the agriculture applications, but still, is there any clear vision, at least really from Tunisia, for example, since you have been at the Minister of Agriculture, so is there any clear vision how we can use it? And is that really a clear strategy for using renewable energy for agriculture issues? So that's my point, because it's easy. We can say always, okay, we can use renewable energy, but there is opportunity, there is some challenge. But is there any clear strategy and vision in this part? Thank you.
No, it is indeed the challenge. And, I started working on this topic several years ago. And I was hoping that we will be in a better shape, actually, because we have a lot of sun. And so we should have been using it for different purposes. I mean, it is now, we are following, and we are followers when we should be leading, in fact. And instead, we started a large research project in the 80s on the topic. But I mean, still, we are just not having a clear direction on this topic. Yesterday, again, we were discussing with different colleagues on, because I mean, we don't understand. Sometimes there are issues that are related to, I mean, to the unions and so on. Why, for example, in Tunisia, the renewable energy is not taking up or as it should be. I hope it's going to change, but I mean, but I cannot say that they are clear. I have shown a different, like using renewable energy for even desalinating water or for irrigation. And we know, in fact, there are a number of people that are using solar energy for pumping water, and they are over pumping, as you said. But I mean, still, we need a clear policy on this topic in order to be able to make a better use of the existing energy. And that, I mean, even producing energy and selling it. So, but I mean, there are other barriers, and I hope that we will be able to overcome these barriers, but they are still there, and it was unexpected. And there are a number of projects that have been stopped because of these barriers that are related to who should be, to the monopoly. I mean, this monopoly position that we have in some sectors that is preventing the country from developing, in fact. But I hope that, and I know that there is a willingness to change this, and we will be pushing in this direction. So we do our best.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, so we leave the best for the last. So Andreas, please, I see that you have a question that is linked to the first one, and it will allow us to conclude our webinar.
Well,
So
I
please.
think, well, Professor Bahri, I think she already addressed the issue to some extent in a previous answer, pretty much when I launched mine as well, which was about kind of following up on the question and your response in relation to where there should be priorities to improve the situation. You very much emphasized the role of governance, and my question was about the possibilities of, I mean, governance equated or much connected to the public sphere and its way of intervening into agriculture and environmental management. My question was in relation to market potentials, which you answered already, I think, to a large extent. And you already answered that you see potentials there. But to be honest, having been also in Tunisia last week, I still feel there's, particularly among policymakers and maybe also in the administrations, I had the feeling there's not maybe great awareness or great emphasis on this. I think there seems to be a lot of perception that the state needs to solve and address things. And there's not so much, there didn't seem to be a lot of enabling, a lot of kind of facilitating market forces to operate, emphasis yet in policies, particularly in relation to resource protection. Why, if you would agree, I'm not sure if you do, why is that the case? Is that a question of mentality, or is there actually, does the public administration not see the potentials of the markets that you have also been identifying now in terms of more identity related and specific assets and possibilities related issues of Tunisian products, for example? Or where are problems in that regard?
Yeah, in fact, as I said, I've seen all this potential, and it was frustrating for me and for the young people who have been meeting. And you see a number of, the bureaucracy is very, very heavy in our country. We are very good at, so there are a number of very good projects and ideas. And every day I'm getting it now, I mean, being given out of the ministry, but people coming back and say, can you help? Can you help? And even if a project where I have been, you know, I thought I had opened the door, but there are still other barriers. So it's just a question of bureaucracy. People don't, this kind of entrepreneurship mentality that, and when you see the young people, they said, you have to, there's a pile of paper that they have to produce to do anything. So the people who are really keeping on and pushing and who have a very strong will to succeed, but it is very difficult. So we have to make sure that we remove all these barriers, bureaucratic barriers, all these papers. But it needs a big change, because some of the people, they feel like it's okay like that. I mean, they have the power, you know. Power of papers, and we asked you, can you come back tomorrow? Can you bring this other paper? Can you? And this is a question of, so we have to change this, and it's going to be, and people thinking, you know, they don't think of going to create their own business. No, they want to be state you know, employed. And it is, we have to change this, and it is, we see a number of people that are going in this direction. But the number of people and how many people the state is employing is incredible. So there is a need to change. And in fact, I mean, we are coming to this point where no, it is no more possible to pay all these people that are sitting in offices but not producing. Because I mean, if you want to pay, you have to produce something. So, but I think that it is, in any case, going to, we need to change. And I hope that we will be able to change, because there is no other way in any case. But it is, I mean, it is a challenge that we are facing. We need to clean our country. We need to make use of our resources. We need to give hope to our young people, because I mean, the young people, they want to, for me, this is the one we have to really invest in. And even so, it starts from the school for me up to, you know, even for the adults and so on. We still have to educate, and as I said, the change in behavior, but we have to address the whole, the whole chain and the whole. I mean, you know, it is a quite a huge challenge, and we are aware of it. But we'll see.
And we see that you are still continuing to open doors, and the situation is quite challenging. And I think this is a good way to conclude our webinar with good vibes, with how to say, with creativity, with good ideas to go forward. And I think our project Aurora is promoting this concept of innovation, of integration. And so I just invite you to join us in our webinars, and we will keep you informed about our activities. So by the way, we are developing also curricula in this regard. Probably Professor Bahri doesn't know it, but we will give you more information, and we will be happy to have your input and recommendations in this regard.
One word, when we talk about innovation, there is also this concept of integrated innovation, where we think not only of the innovation coming from the researchers or research development and so on, but working closely with the people and the business, the private sector. So this is the link between, in order to make sure that an idea is going to be tested, being accepted, but taken up by the private sector in order to, and the business, in order to make it a business. So it's very important, this link that has to be established.
Yeah, so we have to move from our comfort zone. This is the message that we would like to convey to our participant. I would like to reiterate my thanks to Professor Bahri for allocating time and dedicating time to us, to Aurora. Thank you very much, and thank you for all the participants. I may give the floor to Abid if he would like to say a few words.
Yeah, I would also thank Professor Bahri and all who participated to this fruitful discussion, and looking forward for the next webinar in December on Morocco. And I will also send out the invitations. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.